Today, we're gonna take a look at my 2024 lineup of bikes. This season has been a little bit different for me as I haven't had a dedicated frame sponsor, which has allowed me to collaborate with a variety of brands and build up a pretty unique fleet of bikes. We're gonna take a look at how I used each bike, a few key details of their setups, and I'll be sharing a few of my favorite moments on each one. Then, at the end of the video, I'll be sharing my plans on how I look to take my bike builds to the next level moving forwards. So make sure you stick around for that. So to start off the 2024 season, the first bike that I built up was this HD6 from Ibis in the orange color. I was pumped on the color of the bike. I've got this thing in size 2, and I rode this as my trail bike all spring here in southern Utah, and it really handled business for me. And overall, this bike was kind of defined by just playing around with a lot of new parts and little mechanical techniques that I experimented with. So to begin with, the first thing that I tested out was the prototype version of the Super Z. I was really stoked to get a pre-production model of that fork a few weeks before it came out. I've got the production version of the fork on there now. Additionally, I was also able to test out the new race face turbine handlebar. I had ridden the prior generation of this handlebar all of last season, really enjoyed it, so was super stoked to get the new one. Some other things that I played around with this bike is a B-tension lockout on my XTR derailleur. I've seen some World Cup mechanics do this, so I wanted to try it for myself. To be honest with you, it was kind of just a pain in the butt to have on there. Every time you take your wheel off, you need to loosen the derailleur, and I just didn't really find that it was helping too much in terms of the noise of the bike. So a cool thing to play around with, but overall it's not something I'm gonna keep doing moving forwards. And sort of the last thing that I really played around with on this bike was a lot of air versus coil testing. So at the moment, I have the Bomber CR 450-pound spring on there. My air shock I was running was the Bomber Air, and that shock felt really nice as well, but it was cool to kind of do some back and forth testing. Overall, I learned a ton from the HD6 in terms of bike setup, helped me grow a lot, and I'm super pumped on this bike. For some core memories, the kind of defining moment for me with this bike was this video that I made called Illuminance, which was a self-filmed video that I made here in southern Utah, and it was really well received. Definitely the best received bike video that I've put out of me riding. It was a must watch on Pink Bike. The video on my channel has over 200 comments, so thank you to all of you who watched that and supported. That means a lot, and yeah, it was a really awesome moment for me, and had a great time filming on this bike for it. Moving on, we're gonna check out a few of my other bikes, but most notably, we're gonna take a look at my Yeti SB 165, which is super similar to this HD6, but I've got it set up completely different, so you're not gonna wanna miss that. But for now, let's take a look at my Commona Tempo. Here's my Commona Tempo. I built this thing up right at the start of the summer, and I rode it all summer in Colorado as my sole trail bike. I did have the HD6 with me, but I was tending to gravitate to the shinier fresh bike, which was this Tempo. And overall, it has been a ton of fun. I really enjoy short travel trail bikes, so this thing was right up my alley. As soon as they released this bike with the Fricks release video, I really wanted one. I thought that video was epic, and I was super pumped to finally build one up myself. So all in all, there is a lot of really cool parts of this bike, and to begin with, my kind of two favorite pieces of this bike are the wheels and the handlebars. So these wheels are the Race Face era carbon wheels. I have really enjoyed carbon wheels in the past, and oh my gosh, these new era wheels are insane, and the era handlebars are so epic as well. Even though this is 125 mils of rear travel and a 150 fork on there right now, with these wheels and handlebars, this bike just had such great compliance. I was ripping it in the bike park. Didn't really feel like my arms were getting fatigued at all, despite it being a short travel bike. So really impressed with those components. Additionally, I have a custom tune on my Bomber Air here. So I've got a light rebound tune, which allows me to ride my rebound faster than the stock tune permits. Additionally, I've got a light compression tune, which just gives me a little bit better of small bump compliance, which is super key on a short travel bike like this. The last part of this bike that is very notable in my opinion is the chainstay length. So this bike's got a 440 mil chainstay, which is longer than any bike I've had in the past, and I really enjoyed it. The overall longer wheelbase really helps a short travel bike become more capable. So all in all, lots of really good things with this Tempo. And my most notable memory on this bike was filming for this passion project I made with my good friend Jared. called Shockwaves. It was just a short little film that we made, kind of trying to blend my interest in suspension setup and then the visuals of creating a riding video. And yeah, really happy with how that came out. Really hoping to bring more high production films like Shockwaves to the channel next season. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss those. And with this tempo out of the way, let's take a look at the second bike that I rode in that Shockwaves film, and that is my Commona FRS. And here is that FRS. So I've got this bike in the size medium, which is actually the biggest downhill bike I've ever had. It's got a reach of 465 millimeters, and previously the biggest DH bike I was riding had a reach of 452. So it was a bit of a step up, but I felt comfortable trying out a bigger frame because I knew I was going to be riding this as my downhill bike for the summer at Bike Park. So I rode this a ton at Trestle, and we also did a little riding trip out to Highland Mountain Bike Park, which is where I grew up riding. So this kind of bigger bike fit those applications pretty darn well, but it's a bit big for me for doing tricks and things, which I do here in Southern Utah. Overall, this has been a cool bike, really good data for me to have riding the bigger downhill bike just to see how I like it. There are some pros and some cons, as with most things with bike setup, so that was really fun to sort of learn a bit more about. Another thing that I was able to learn a lot about with this FRS is the flip chip here. So it's got a sensitive and responsive setting, which is a really neat feature to have. And they claim that it makes no geometry changes. So what I would do over the course of the summer is I would try either the air shock or the coil shock. I would go do a lap at the bike park in one of the two flip chip settings, come back, flip it to the other one, ride the same trail. That way I could independently see how the change in the rear kinematic was affecting the rear shock's performance. And that was a pretty neat thing to do. I haven't had a bike in the past that has a progression flip chip or things like this. So this was the first time I've been able to play around with that, and it was super fun. Another major part of this bike that was pretty different to some downhill bikes I've rode in the past is it does have the aluminum frame. I've only rode carbon downhill bikes for the past many seasons in a row, so having an aluminum one was kind of cool to feel that difference. Definitely a much more damped feel out there on the trail, but overall I was able to collect a lot of really good data about bike setup with this FRS, and I'm excited to apply that moving forwards. All in all, my sort of core memories with this bike are all around that same Shockwaves video. I had a ton of fun filming that, and this bike was a major part of that project. So super thankful for my time on it. And now let's take a look at my Yeti SB 165. And here we have it, my final bike build for the 2024 season, my custom built Yeti SB 165. But before we dive into this bike's setup, if you're enjoying this video, please consider dropping it a like. It really helps me out. So with the SB 165, I went for a slope duro style build on this bike. So we're running size small frame. We've got it set up for bar spins, single speed, and just overall really light build. So it's coming in around 32 pounds, but I'll put the proper weight up on the screen right now. And I have just been absolutely loving this bike. A few kind of key details are these are my first set of wheels that I've laced up myself, and they've been holding up really well. So honestly, a bit relieved about that. We've got a custom tune on the rear shock, so we're running a light rebound tune and a heavy compression tune. And then of course we have it set up for the bar spins and the single speed. And all in all, this bike's been an absolute treat. It's my first bar spinnable long travel trail bike that I've had, and it's really opened up my mind to kind of the direction that I want to take my riding moving forward. I haven't filmed a proper riding video on this bike yet, as I have with the bikes mentioned previously in this kind of bike walkthrough, but I'm really looking forward to making a proper free ride shred it on a single crown bike in the next few months. I have a lot of ideas, and I'm just excited to keep putting in the work, keep improving my riding, and get it to a point where I feel ready to make that video. So moving forwards, what is to come for these upcoming bike builds on the channel? Well, first and foremost, I've been working on getting a frame sponsor sorted out for the 2025 season. So that is the biggest piece of the puzzle. But other than that, I have been working on a lot of cool details to really bring these bikes to the next level. The first of those details is custom hardware. So I've been ordering up bolts such as, the seat clamp bolt, stem bolts, things like this from different manufacturers, and just testing the quality. I've put them on this bike just to see how they wear over time. And that way, for these upcoming builds, I can do custom bolts across the entire bike, and I think that's really gonna bring them to life. Additionally, Raceface makes custom hub colors, and now that I've built up this set of wheels and they've held up over time, I'm gonna try to do custom wheel builds for all of these upcoming bikes. So that way we can do anything, from silver, blue, gold hubs. We can do custom nipple colors, things like this, and just really tie everything together. Lastly, I'm excited to learn a lot more about custom painting. I've painted a few sets of fork lowers in the past and they've turned out really well, and I'm excited to dive deeper into that. I want to paint a few more forks and even work up to painting a frame myself. These are the types of things that I want to do to make these custom bikes really come to life and just really make them a staple on the channel. I have a ton of fun putting these bikes together and it seems that you guys love them as well.